USS Shamrock was launched on St. Patrick's Day, 1863, at the New York Navy Yard with a crowd of over 5,000 watching. The New York Times reported that from a platform dressed in American flags and sprigs of green, Miss Sally Bryant broke a bottle of wine on Shamrock's bow and declared, "In honor of the loyal Irish, on this their festal day, we dedicate this ship to the Lord of Wind and Waves and call her Shamrock." Shamrock was a sidewheel gunboat of the Sassacus-class. These shallow-draft, double-ended gunboats were built for operations on rivers and in coastal waters. With 28 ships, the Sassacus-class was the largest class of ships built for the U.S. Navy until the 20th century. At around 1,100 tons displacement, the ships were 236 feet long and 35 feet on the beam. They were wooden-hulled, but the pilot houses were armored against small arms fire. Although they carried a schooner rig, they were primarily steamers, and their machinery could propel them at more than 12 knots. Some reached 14. The Sassacus-class gunboats carried two 100-pounder Parrott rifles, one on each end, mounted on pivot carriages which allowed them to fire on either broadside. They also carried four 9-inch Dahlgren smoothbores. Two of these were mounted on each broadside, with one pair forward and one pair aft of the paddle box. Additionally, four boat howitzers were carried, usually mounted on the upper deck to provide defense against small boats or troops ashore. USS Shamrock commissioned at New York on June 13, 1864, under Commander William H. Macomb. The ship was named to honor and celebrate the Irish soldiers and sailors who were fighting for the Union and their families. And Navy Secretary Gideon Welles ordered that she be launched on St. Patrick's Day to underline that point. Irish-born sailors are said to have constituted about 20% of the U.S. Navy during the American Civil War. A quick review of Shamrock's muster book shows that just over a quarter of her initial crew had declared that they were Irish-born, and of course still others were likely to have been born to Irish families in the United States. On June 20th, USS Shamrock entered Albemarle Sound in North Carolina, where she joined the squadron of other gunboats guarding against the Confederate ironclad ram CSS Albemarle. The U.S. Navy had twice fought Albemarle. In the first battle, USS Southfield was rammed and sunk by Albemarle, and in the second battle, the U.S. Navy squadron of unarmored gunboats fought Albemarle to a draw. USS Sassacus rammed CSS Albemarle in that fight, though without doing major damage to the Confederate vessel. For 4 months, USS Shamrock served on the Sound, until a plan was hatched by Lieutenant William B. Cushing to destroy CSS Albemarle in a raid using a spar torpedo mounted on a small steam-powered boat. USS Shamrock served as the mothership for Cushing's Picket Boat No. 1, and on the night of October 27, 1864, Cushing's boat towed one of Shamrock's cutters with 11 sailors from Shamrock up the Roanoke River. Shamrock's boat crew was to board the wreck of USS Southfield and eliminate any Confederate sentries there. Cushing's attack succeeded, and though he managed to escape, most of those who were in the picket boat with him did not. With Albemarle sunk, on October 30, 1864, USS Shamrock led a squadron of U.S. Navy gunboats in an attack on Plymouth, North Carolina. Commander Macomb, the senior officer of the squadron, determined on the 29th that the wreck of Albemarle and the obstructions placed in the Roanoke River would prevent his force from reaching Plymouth. However, he was informed that there was enough water in the middle river for his ships to make it upstream of Plymouth and then attack the city's defenses from the rear. USS Shamrock's bombardment of Plymouth began even before she left in the middle river. Commander Macomb writing that we fired by compass courses over the woods at Plymouth and at distances varying from 2,600 to 1,700 yards, and I've since learned that our fire was very effective. Reaching the Roanoke River upstream of Plymouth late in the afternoon of the 30th, USS Shamrock proceeded to bombard the batteries defending Plymouth. The converted ferry USS Commodore Hull led the U.S. Navy squadron toward Plymouth. Commodore Hull was placed at the head of the line due to her ability to fire directly ahead. The gunboats were lashed together in pairs, so that if the boiler or machinery of one was disabled, the other would be able to move both ships out of danger. The gunboats in each pair on the starboard side would be nearer the shore batteries and had the steam blown off in their starboard boilers, so that a shot piercing the boiler would not produce a catastrophic explosion or scald everyone around them. In his report of the action, Commander Macomb wrote, "At 9:30 a.m., the vessels being in line, I signaled to the Commodore Hull to run ahead and reconnoiter and ascertain if the channel was clear. She reported all right, and I got under way, signaling the other vessels to follow in close order. The enemy opened fire as soon as we came within range, and kept up a constant and very heavy fire, directed principally against the Commodore Hull and the Shamrock. As I neared the batteries, I gave the order, 'Go ahead fast!' and soon we were directly opposite the enemy's guns, when he was driven from his rifle pits and field pieces by grape and canister from the ship, which we poured in very heavily. The batteries still held out, though their fire began to be wild, but as Shamrock passed them, one of her shells exploded their magazine, which blew up with great force, some of the fragments falling on our decks. This evidently caused a panic among the rebels, for from that time their fire slackened and at length ceased altogether. I then made the signal to cease firing, and then to land and take possession of the batteries, which was done without resistance. A party from this ship under Lieutenant Dewar marched into the lower works, we having by this time passed the town and arrived opposite them, took about a dozen prisoners, and spiked the guns to prevent the enemy from firing on the vessels should they return to their batteries." After the capture of Plymouth, Commander Macomb and USS Shamrock were placed in charge of raising the sunken Albemarle, which was eventually accomplished on March 20th, 1865. One of Albemarle's guns is kept as a trophy at Naval Station Norfolk, a direct connection to Shamrock. After the Civil War, Shamrock was one of the first ships to serve on the re-established West Indies station. In 1867, she was sent across the Atlantic to serve on the European station under Admiral David Farragut, no mean feat for a gunboat designed to serve on rivers. In the summer of 1868, she returned to the United States and decommissioned at Philadelphia. USS Shamrock was and is a ship which honored Irish soldiers and sailors of the United States. While she remains the only USS Shamrock to have served in the U.S. Navy, during the Second World War, the Casablanca-class escort carrier USS Shamrock Bay, CVE 84, served in the Pacific. On April 16, 1945, 4 of USS Shamrock Bay's FM-2 Wildcats shot down 6 of the kamikazes attacking USS Laffey, helping save that ship, which is now a museum in Charleston, South Carolina. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. And if it's your custom to raise a glass on St. Patrick's Day, I commend you to do so in memory of the brave sailors of USS Shamrock and USS Shamrock Bay. Sláinte.